So you want to buy yourself a Ducati, and I can't blame you. This 1098 right here is an absolute work of art. It handles like a dream, and it's an absolute torque monster. The only problem is you keep hearing from people online that you shouldn't buy yourself an old superbike like this because it's so much more expensive than its Japanese counterparts. You keep hearing about things like the Ducati tax, desmodromic service costs, labor rates at your Ducati dealer, and all these other little ways that Ducati likes to nickel and dime you. However, is any of that actually true? Are Ducatis really that much more expensive than their Japanese counterparts from the same era? To answer that question, I actually did a ton of research over the last few days. I've checked online, dug through service manuals, called my insurance company, and called local dealers, all to find out exactly how much more expensive owning a Ducati is versus something like a Japanese leader bike from the same time. Stay tuned, it's gonna be a good one. Now there's a whole bunch of places on a motorcycle where it can start costing you money. If you're curious, it's everywhere. Motorcycles are really expensive, but they don't have to be outrageously so, and that's why a bunch of people will tell you to stay away from early 2000s Ducatis, or Ducatis in general, because they think they're more expensive. So to answer that question, I have taken this Ducati here against everybody's favorite Japanese leader bike from the early 2000s, the Suzuki Gixxer 1000. Yes, the K5 rears its head once again. Of course it was going to be the 2005. So we're going to take a look at all of the ways that these two motorcycles tend to cost money, from buying them to maintaining them, modifying them, and insuring them, because that's often an overlooked cost. We're going to take a look at all of that stuff and then determine which one is the winner. Get yourself signed up to win this Ducati down below. You'll get access to our Discord server, a bunch of other exclusive behind-the-scenes content, live streams, all sorts of goodies, and again, you might win yourself a Ducati and save yourself the price of entry. Now, talking about price of entry, let's take a look at what these bikes are going to cost from a dealership in the year of our Lord 2021. So I'm going to do the one thing that everybody does all the time, because we're always looking to buy a new motorcycle, pull up some motorcycle ads online. And we're just going to dive right in, see what a Gixxer 1000 is going to cost us. And that is, okay, probably Yam was looking at the computer, because that's a twin turbo Busa, not Cycle Trader. Let's close that down and pull up Cycle Trader. GSXR 1000. You can see exactly what I'm searching for. And I'm not looking for a specific zip code, I'm just looking for general numbers. So let's start seeing what Gixxers are going to cost us. Let's pull up some model years here, because we want to get as close to the 2005 as we can. Model year, any 05, where are you? 05 to, let's say, 2010. That's still pretty early on, they should be pretty cheap. So, first thing we've got is a 2009 Gixxer 1000 from a dealership in Florida, going for $9,590. We've got another dealer here in Mineola, New York. $9,000 out the door for a 2007 Gixxer 1000. That's pretty good. So it looks like Gixxer 1000s are about $9,000 from that time period. So let's take a look at what some Ducatis are going to cost us. Ducati 1098, and see what that gets us. But we do have a 2007 Ducati Superbike 1098 going for $12,000 from a private seller, which hopefully we can find some dealers here. That is a 1098S going for $13,000. 2007, another private seller. Let's see here, these are not Ducatis. Well, it looks like we're stuck with private sellers, but they're going for between $9,000 and $13,000 dues, which is a lot of money. So I'm going to call it about 11.5 probably as our average number. All right, so what did we learn looking at all of those little ads for motorcycles online? First of all, it's fun to shop online for motorcycles. Who doesn't sit there and stare at Craigslist or Cycle Trader dreaming of the next motorcycle in their garage? But the main thing that we learned is that Gixxers are in fact cheaper from a dealership than Ducatis are. Or, well, I suppose, because we actually couldn't find any Ducatis at a dealership on Cycle Trader basically anywhere in the country. They just weren't available. So you had to go to a private seller, and those private sellers were guys who took care of their motorcycle. They had different exhausts on there, and while exhausts don't add value, the prices reflected all the stuff that they had done to their bikes. And yeah, you might be able to talk them down, but some of these guys are going to be old farts who are going to say the price is firm at $12,000, and then you're stuck handing over a stack of hundreds to this guy. Now, our Ducati right here costed us $10,800 out the door at our local Ducati Austin dealership here. So it's cut in the middle pretty well between these two values. And we had some pretty reasonably priced Gixxer 1000s from dealerships. So this one's right down the middle, but even still, our Ducati was more expensive than the average Gixxer 1000. So point to the Gixxer. So on average, our Gixxer boys are saving $1,500 on the price of their motorcycles. So a bit of a black eye for the Ducatistas out there. But how about insurance? Surely all those Gixxer boys are wadding up their Gixxers out there, and that is driving up the price of insurance. Well, let's find out. And to do that, I actually called my insurance company and got quotes based on my policy for adding a Ducati 1098 or 2005 Gixxer 1000. Now there's a couple of things that you need to remember about these quotes that I got. First of all, I have 4 vehicles on my policy. I have 3 motorcycles and 1 car. Adding another motorcycle to that policy does affect my rates, so they will be different for you if it is your only motorcycle. Another thing to consider, I have myself listed as a driver on the policy as well as my girlfriend. That will change prices. Third, I have had a motorcycle stolen in the last 3 years, and I did file a claim for an attempted theft on a bike, although I didn't use any of that money because not enough damage was done. But that does affect some of the quotes. And lastly, I live in a city, so that is going to change versus you living in a rural area. Your rates are based on zip code. So enough preamble, what were the numbers for each motorcycle? Well, the Gixxer 1000 would have cost me $965 a year to insure. That's a lot of money. I mean, it is a 1000cc superbike, and yes, people do wad them up on the street, so there is additional liability there. But how about the Ducati? Surely the Ducati's got to be cheaper because a bunch of old farts are riding around on it and they're not putting any miles down, right? Unfortunately for the Ducatistas out there, the Ducati was going to cost me $1,213 annually to insure, taking my policy up to $2,300 a year. This motorcycle would have cost more than a Harley Davidson, a KTM, and a Suzuki put together, which is insane. Now, a couple of things that are driving up the price of this Ducati right here. Obviously, they're taking into account stuff like model years and mileage and the crash records of these motorcycles, as well as the individual history of the bike that you're insuring. But mainly for the Ducati, the big problem, as far as Progressive sees it, is the cost to repair. Apparently, as they see it, Gixxers are just easier to repair, cheaper to repair than a Ducati. And these get totaled out more often because the parts are just so much more expensive, thus driving up your annual cost and making it an even 2-0 for the Gixxer. They have now saved a solid $1,800 over the Ducatistas out there. Womp womp. So we've looked at buying your motorcycle, we've looked at insuring your motorcycle, but now we got to talk about modifying your motorcycle. This is the fun part, right? Although you do get those Ducati people out there who are like, don't modify your Ducati, it's a work of art. But I mean, everybody out there works on their motorcycle, right? It's always fun to bust out the tools and just hack some stuff off of your bike. I mean, it's fun to make your own motorcycle your own. There are many like it, but this one is yours. But the question is, are mods more expensive for this here 1098 than they are for the Gixxer 1000? Let's take a look back at the computer and see if we can't find some exhausts or some flashes for these motorcycles and compare prices on these. All right, we are back here in front of the computer. We're about to take a look at some modifications online. I've already done a little bit of research on this one, spoiler alert, and we are not going to be going with everybody's big favorite online retailer. We're actually going to be stuck looking at some direct from manufacturers because these parts are actually kind of hard to come by apparently. So let's dive in and start out with the Gixxer 1000. Let's say we're looking for an exhaust. So Gixxer 1000 full system. Slap 2005 on there so we can get right here. Okay, so Gixxer 1000 full system. We got one from M4 for the correct time period. Let's go for the full system, shall we? I mean, everybody wants to put a full system M4 on their Gixxer. $853. That's pretty on par, I would say, for a full system exhaust. We've got stainless steel tubing, whatever, but 850, about right on the mark. Let's take a look at an exhaust or a ECU flash. See what that would cost. ECU flash. So you've got your DynoJet option, which is not a flash, but that's 350 bucks. Here's one for the Gixxer 1000 for the K5. 200 bucks to get your Gixxer flashed. That's actually pretty crazy low from what I've seen. So $200 gets you a flash, 850 bucks gets you a full system exhaust, and then you know, all the other little parts here and there that you're going to put on are basically universal, so we're not going to count them. Now let's take a look at a Ducati exhaust. 2008 Ducati 1098 exhaust. Okay, already I am seeing some bigger numbers here. Not what I was hoping to see, but let's scroll down and see what we can find from... here's one from our good friends over at Motivation. Wow, okay, so the full system here on Motivation from Aero is $3,249. Youch! Let's take a look at a flash for the Ducati 1098. 2008 Ducati 1098 ECU flash. If I can type. Well, you got your usual power commanders, which again, not a flash, but they run for the same price. And I'm already seeing one here for $500 for the Ducati. So once again, we have more expensive parts for the Ducati here. Now here comes the moment all those Gixxer boys down in the comments have been waiting for. We're about to talk about regular maintenance on your motorcycles. The first thing I wanted to take a look at was stuff that you can do at home relatively easily and for not a lot of money. So the first thing we're going to talk about are oil changes. Because it's a Ducati, you can actually buy kits for this motorcycle that are all the stuff that you need to do an oil change. And obviously because it's coming from Ducati, it's got to cost more, right? Well, let's take a look. So I actually found a kit from a dealership for this motorcycle that costs $80 from the dealership. It's got all the oil, all the new crush washers, and a new filter coming straight from Bologna. Who doesn't love that? Now how about that Gixxer? It's got to be a little bit cheaper, right? I mean, it's a super easy to work on Japanese inline 4. Well, a K&N oil filter is going to cost you 15 bucks. You got to buy yourself 4 quarts of Yamalube, which if you're sitting there at home thinking, it's a Suzuki, I can't put Yamaha lube in there. It's what your dealership uses, I promise you. And that's going to run you about 15 bucks a quart. You need 4 quarts of it, even though it only takes 3,300 milliliters. And that is going to run you 65 bucks. Putting 2 and 2 together with your crush washer being about $1, puts the Gixxer right in line with the Ducati. 80 bucks for both motorcycles. But that's got to be a fluke for the oil, right? Surely something else on this motorcycle costs more. The air filter, maybe that's got to be special, right? It's got to be flown in special from the Biscotti fields in Italy. Unfortunately for you, it's 60 bucks. You just buy yourself a K&N air filter, one of the high flow ones, 60 bucks. It's reusable, just like the one on the Gixxer, which, shocker, costs $60. They're the exact same price. Why? Because you don't have to go with manufacturer stuff. You can just get a third-party filter for your motorcycle, and they're not going to upcharge you for the Ducati stuff. They're going to upcharge you based on what kind of filter you're getting. If you're getting the high flow filter, it's more expensive than something like a cheapo paper filter, and they're not going to charge you too much more for Ducati versus Gixxer. I mean, they're the same price, so there you go. But now for the moment you've all been waiting for at home if you're in Camp Gixxer 1000. How about talking about some of the more expensive maintenance items on these motorcycles? Stuff that you're not normally going to do at home unless you're a practiced mechanic. Some of the stuff that you need to dive into your owner's manual to find your maintenance schedule for. And by the way, the Ducati one is literally a brick because it comes in like 5 different languages. The Ducati here has 38 maintenance items in its scheduled maintenance chapter, with a couple of things that you have to do every 600 miles on this motorcycle, which is pretty crazy. The Gixxer 1000, only 24. And you can already probably tell that the Gixxer is going to be cheaper, but I've got some numbers for you here, cherry-picked from both the cheap and the expensive side. Now let's start with the cheap stuff. Stuff that doesn't require ripping into your engine every time you want to work on it. I'm talking about things like suspension and that sort of stuff. The suspension on a Gixxer 1000 needs to be sorted every 7,000 miles, and the steering heads and hoses need to be checked every 3,500. Those things aren't going to take a tech all that long to work on, probably about 15 minutes for each individual part. They're probably going to bill uptime because they're not going to mark something down as only taking 10 minutes. They're just going to bill you for 15. Here in Austin at our local Big 4 dealership, you're going to be paying $125 an hour for that. So, you know, extrapolate all that stuff out. Might be 125 bucks for your front, your rear suspension, your hoses, and your cooling system. If you need it to be flush, that's going to take, again, more time. Add your hourly rate on top of that. But digging into the Gixxer, getting inside the engine, what do you need to do there? Well, the really big thing that you need to do, obviously, is valves. That comes due at 14,500 miles, and that is going to be an expensive service no matter what way you cut it. They got to dig out all the fairings, take the engine apart a little bit, get in, check the valves. It's going to be even more if the valves need to be adjusted. You also need to replace your spark plugs every 3,500 miles on that Gixxer. Now, here comes the Ducati. I'm not even going to bother talking about some of the cheap stuff because I'm not kidding, literally every time you need to take this thing to the dealership for basic service, they need to take the engine apart. I'm not joking. 7,500 miles is your first valve adjustment. When they do that valve adjustment, they need to check the timing belts. Then the next 7,500 miles, 15,000, another valve check, and the timing belts need to be replaced. Then another 7,500, they got to check the timing belts again, do your valves. Another 7,500, replace those timing belts again and check the valves. You cannot escape the desmodromic valves on this thing. And your Ducati dealer, like ours, is probably going to charge you about 125 bucks an hour, which is exactly the same as the Big 4 dealership, meaning this thing is just going to cost you more and more and more every time you need to take it to the dealership. There's no escaping the cost of maintaining a Ducati, unfortunately. Now I know you Ducatistas down in the comments section below are telling me, but Spite, I'm handy with a wrench. I don't need to pay the dealership all that money. Well, unfortunately, you still need to buy yourself a whole bunch of special tools, and then you're working on this motorcycle yourself, which I've been inside a Testastretta before. It's not fun. So let's start drawing some conclusions about all of this mess here. Are Ducatis more expensive than your average superbike from Japan? Yes, they just are. There's no escaping how much money you're gonna have to spend on this motorcycle. It's more expensive to buy in, it's more expensive to buy mods for, it's more expensive to insure, and then as you can see on the whiteboard, it's just dollar signs all over the place to keep that motorcycle up and running. It's insane when you really start looking into it. And I was really pulling for the Ducati, but guys, I gotta say, I mean, there's no winning. My espresso cup's completely empty. There's no way to powder coat this for you. Ducati's just more expensive. But hey, if you want to win yourself this Ducati right here, save yourself some cash on the initial buy-in. Click the link down below, get yourself signed up to win. This is the cheapest way you're gonna get into a Ducati right here, winning it for free down on yammynoob.co. Click those links, get yourself signed up to win, and I'm just gonna be sad and I'll catch you in the next one.
Hey you, yeah, click the Yammy Noob video right over there. You should do it. Click that video. Keep watching. Some good stuff. You should really check it out. Hey, look over there. Go click the video. Look, go click it. Click it right now. Do it. Click that video right now. Do it. Do it.